My role, I presume, is to go beyond what Josh has outlined here a little, to make him seem reasonable by comparison. It seems to me, as an outside observer, that there is a remarkable level of consensus among quite a large number of players represented by this document that Josh has described. I think there is potential compatibility, at least in some loose way, with a lot of other things that I've heard tonight and this afternoon, etc. And I think there's potential to go a good deal further. At least you have a solid basis of agreement that business as usual is unsatisfactory. So I'm going to talk about the positive side of what you can do with that, since I get to go home and you have to go. There are people who are not at this table. There are concerns and opportunities that are not included in this agenda. There are and will be more significant trade-offs. And I think the more of all of that can be incorporated in this discussion, the better. Recognizing that this is going to make Paul nervous. I'll try to get that. So I would say that one of the things that is cheerful here and that is we're continuing this conversation to build a broader and deeper mutual understanding of what issues are out there that agitate people and that need to get attended to more successfully than they have been done so far. Not that they'll be resolved, but they need all to be recognized. That suggests that, as I think is implicit much of the conversation so far, that there is a need for some greater clarity of how to organize the necessary analysis and how to structure the decision-making. Neither of those components seems to be adequate present. There are three basic principles, I think. One is to ensure that all the big issues get addressed. The second is to ensure that the deliberations and decision-making are transparent, credible, and authoritative. And thirdly, to ensure that it doesn't take forever. And there may be quotes about other things they have, but those three are probably pretty close to the list. Now, the stuff that has been discussed so far, the various points in this consensus document, cover two levels. One is the level of provincial electrical energy system planning and the associated policies and plans associated with that. And the second is a more watershed-based, this was for one of the river projects, regional cumulative effects, siting package. What is the guidance that there should be available at that scale for the licensing decisions, the planning of undertakings, etc. Those are clearly related. And if this were a logical world, which it plainly isn't, you would do all this great policy and plans at the provincial level, and then there'd be this nice little iteration to tell you how to do the stuff at the regional level, and you do that, and then you have the project decisions, and people walk away and they've done a nice job. And you don't get to do that, and it would work anyhow. And so you've inherited a system that has a little bit of all this kind of stuff, and you're messing around with it all at the same time. So I think those are parallel tracks that inform each other, and that will take years and years to do properly, and take about 20 minutes to do better than you're doing now. So one of the great advantages of a lot of this area, certainly all the stuff in sustainability, is that the hurdle is so low that an absolute idiot can do better. That's how I thought. Saying that, there are some specifics about what you would do at the provincial electricity policy and system planning level. Now, Cam may have done this afternoon already, so, but it's clear that some of the issues that have been presented here today are in that category. Exports is in that category. The amount of conservation demand management in the supply demand mix is at that scale. What other objectives the electrical policy should serve is at that level. Let me flag for you that the discussion here is pretty narrow. Is electricity to be a means of facilitating further growth? If so, for whom? Why do they need it? Is electricity to deal with climate change? Is it to reduce carbon emissions, directly, indirectly? Sure, but is that allowed to continue? And should it? So there's down the road issues. Is it meant to facilitate regional development? Does that mean providing durable livelihoods for communities that are now vulnerable? Or does that mean something else? Who gets the benefit from all this? Do they need it? As opposed to people who clearly do. Well, those don't talk about that very much in electrical power planning in Ontario, which claims to be driven by sustainability. Can we do it? But you'll correct me if I'm wrong. But I was guessing that there could be some small area of improvement. So there's a whole suite of considerations that really ought to be addressed if this is seriously about having a future that we can all live in happily and get along. And it's not going to happen accidentally. It's not going to happen by a little bit being considered in energy, a little bit considered in fisheries, a little bit being considered in industrial expansion. It's not going to happen that way. You all know that. We all know that. We never try to deal with it, so that's a bit of a anyway, that kind of activity needs to be wrestled with, and then there are roles for various players, and there are questions about, good one. There are questions about what do you do at this regional level. And I think that the same basic question applies, which is what's the range of issues you're addressing in trying to figure out what to do with these things. There are a lot of ecological issues, certainly. There's also a lot of issues about communities and what lasting benefits they may get from that. Is this going to be something that will give them a sustainable basis for continuation that doesn't drive them to do other things that we would more regret? Can there be positive benefits where you get mutually reinforcing gains for communities and for your energy delivery and et cetera, if we look at a broader suite of criteria? Sure. A little easy? Not so much, but you can certainly get some gains. So I think that there's a range of issues, questions there, that there's process to do with that, and we can talk about that for hours. There's trade-offs that have to be explicit, there's criteria that have to be open, and there is, as Sephora mentioned, tons of information already. So to do a little bit on this area, I don't think would be that difficult. Consolidating the requirements of a whole variety of bodies that now have regulatory and licensing and other responsibilities who don't coordinate it very well and are very consistent and frustrating to virtually every player. It's difficult mostly because that's not how we do things, but otherwise, I think we could do quite a good job. So at those two levels, integrating a sustainability agenda in an open way with explicit attention to trade-offs should be possible.